1994 was the year when Pulp Fiction challenged Oscar voters and Frasier Crane started his love affair with the Emmys. It was also the year when Green Day threw Dookie all over the Grammys. But what about the video game awards? If you've ever wanted to know what old school video games took home the top prizes, then you've definitely come to the right place. Today we're going to recreate Electronic Gaming Monthly's best and worst of 1994, featuring 36 categories that range from worst movie game to best duo to most appalling trend. So let me cue up the VCR and introduce you to the greatest televised award show to never be broadcast. Let's do this. Live on tape from sunny California, it's Electronic Gaming Monthly's 7th annual Best and Worst Award Show. And now, your host, a guy who might be waking up to reality, Cyril Lachelle. Hello and welcome, my name is Cyril, and this is Electronic Gaming Monthly's Best and Worst of 1994. 1994? What can I say about 1994? In some ways, this feels like the last gasp for the 16-bit generation. We have a bunch of new systems coming out next year, from everybody from Sega to Nintendo to Sony, and I couldn't be more excited. Well, except for the Sony system, the PlayStation or whatever it's called. I mean, guys, do you honestly think that the company best known for bringing Hook and Bram Stoker's Dracula to the Sega CD are even going to make a dent in 1995? This thing's gonna flop harder than Last Action Hero. Now, I do feel like I have to apologize to you. If it seems like I'm a little unfocused this evening, it's because of something I just learned backstage. Apparently, we're not the only video game award show on this evening. Maybe you heard, but right now we're competing against something called Cybermania 95 over on TBS. I'm being told that it's apparently hosted by Leslie Nielsen and Jonathan Taylor Thomas? No, that can't be right. You mean the kid from Home Improvement? Huh, well, I don't know if we have the technology to do this, but can we switch over and see what they're doing right now? I just have to see this for myself.
Viva Las Vegas! The city of Las Vegas is now shedding its cable, or rather its gambling image, for one of computer gaming. From 2-bit hoods to gigabyte hard drives, from colorful sociopathic characters like Bugsy Siegel to colorful sociopathic characters like Goro the Monster.
Throughout the evening, we'll be cutting away to the new arcade meccas of America to see how gamers across the country are rooting for their favorites. We'll also be getting some hints about how to get to the next level of some of your favorite games. Now, first up is a brand new virtual land Luxor hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, where Sean Alex Thompson, star of the new series, The News, is standing by with some avid gamers.
Oh, well, that's just embarrassing. Though I gotta admit that it's cute how they want to imitate us. We've been at this now for, 7 years, and despite almost everybody dying the first time out, we've had 6 incredible years of giving out the best and worst prizes. We'll keep checking in on Cybermania throughout the evening, but first I want to make a hard transition into the awards. In this challenging and uncertain world, the one constant I always turn to are the game characters. From funny to serious to just plain gross. This was a good year for new characters, so let's kick off tonight's festivities with a look at the best new character. This year, the honor goes to Earthworm Jim, and it wasn't even close. From the moment the editors saw Jim's idle animation and sense of humor, they knew this action hero was destined for greatness. This marks a sea change for the video game industry. The old guard is gonna need to bring the fire if they intend to fight exciting new characters like Earthworm Jim and Arrow the Acrobat. And yes, that includes Donkey and Diddy Kong, the winners of the Best Game Duo category. EGM loves their hysterical look, calling them the hippest duo in video game history. I'm not sure what Sonic and Tails, Ryu and Ken, and Billy and Jimmy Lee think of that. I imagine it's a similar feeling that I have every time I play Boogerman, the winner of the grossest character of the year. This is a brand new category that seems to have been added just to talk about this smelly action hero. And you know who isn't gross? the winner of Hottest Game Babe, who is none other than Mai Shiranui from SNK's The King of Fighters franchise. EGM reports that battle cries of "Me Bouncy" echoed throughout the offices every time somebody selected her. Oddly enough, that's the same battle cry you heard every time Al Manuel came to work, because the EGM editor tied with the Incredible Hulk as the hottest game hunk. So wait, it's the Hulk, and then this lanky game critic? What are you even doing here? Cut to the audience being confused or something. Every year we celebrate the best games that have already come out, but what about the great games that we couldn't wait to come out? We wanted to honor those games at this year's ceremonies by creating the most anticipated game category, which goes to the much-hyped Mortal Kombat 2. This is a no-brainer, what with the EGM editors loving the arcade cabinet and already being bored of the Genesis original. And with the movie just around the corner, Mortal Kombat excitement is at an all-time high. Speaking of being high, that might explain Aggressors of Dark Combat, the winner of Strangest Game of the Year, with moves like Friendly Duo Consolidated Punch and Jealousy Bomber. You know you're in for a weird time. And that's before you realize that Aggressors of Dark Combat is creator ADK using their initials to troll fighting game fans. Are we really at the point where developers are willing to create fighting games based on anything? According to our next category, the answer is a resounding yes. The winner of Most Appalling Trend of the Year is the fact that there are too many fighting games. Seriously, way too many. Look, I know that Street Fighter II is popular, but all of a sudden it feels like every company has to have their own clone in 1994. And guys, very few of them are any good. With all these new systems coming out in 1995, here's hoping publishers will cool it with the fighting games. Now, as you know, blood and fighting games go hand in gross, sticky hand. The winner of Bloodiest Game of 1994 is none other than Mortal Kombat 2. The arcade hit so popular that it got Nintendo to bend on their no blood stance. No game in 1994 was as sick and twisted as Mortal Kombat. And someday there's gonna be a supercut of all the fatalities that'll prove my case. Until that happens, we're just gonna have to move on to our next category, the dreaded Trick of the Year. As you know, I'm not a huge fan of this award, so EGM decided to make a compromise. They split it up into two categories. I'm not sure that's much of a compromise, but here we go anyway. The winner of Home System Trick of the Year goes to the Fireball trick in Mega Man X. This seems like an April Fool's joke at first, but it's a real trick that really works. And let's be honest, it's impossible to resist watching Mega Man scream Hadouken! You know who else throws fireballs? Akuma, the winner of Arcade Trick of the Year. If you successfully follow the complicated instructions, you'll unlock another new character in Super Street Fighter 2. I gotta say, I love Akuma, but does he really have to look exactly like the fake Shenlong trick we posted a couple of years ago? I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Wow, the tricks of the year were actually pretty good this year. Before we move on to the next set of categories, I first wanted to see if, maybe we can check in one more time with Cybermania 94. Is that possible? Okay, I'm getting the thumbs up from the booth, so let's see what they're up to right now.
We're here live in Paramus, New Jersey. I'm Will Arnett, and we're in one of the biggest arcades in America, and also one of the loudest, Sports World, here in Paramus, New Jersey. People are getting a little unruly here. Now, who's going to win for best game tonight? Good. What's your favorite game?
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. What about you?
NBA Jam.
What about you?
NBA Jam.
NBA Jam seems to be pretty much of a favorite around here. Now, tonight, I'm going to give you guys and some of our Double Dragon fans a little tip here in playing Double Dragon 5, The Shadow Falls. Okay, now here's the first tip. To finish Billy Lee, you got to use the standing hard punch. That always gets Billy Lee. Now, secondly, to finish the Shadow Master, you have to use the standing hard kick. You know, the Shadow Master can't fight the standing hard kick. And third, to finish the ice pick, you got to use the crouching medium punch. I don't know, this is better than the standing hard kick. the crouching medium punch gets him every time. And that's all I can tell you about tips on Double Dragon 5. So we're going to leave here one time and go back to Cybermania Central Los Angeles. It's crazy here.
Will Arnett, what are you doing? This is not the way to break into Hollywood. Folks, I hate to say this, but I think we just saw the death of a career right there. Man, now I'm legitimately depressed. We should just move on. Actually, I know exactly what we should do. And that's to hand out the prize for the worst system launch of the year. Our one and only hardware category this evening. This was an easy one because 1994 was the year when the Atari Jaguar was released. Actually, the Jaguar was released in November of 1993, which is really confusing. I mean, I guess it did come out after our last award show, but why would that matter? Has EGM been lying to us this whole time? On second thought, maybe I shouldn't tug too hard on that thread. Instead, what we should do is just hand out the award for Most Improved Company, which goes to Takara. Takara? Whatever. This was the company that only a few years ago was making games like Banana Prince and Over Horizon, but now is best known for genuinely great ports of everything from Samurai Showdown to King of the Monsters. With so many Neo Geo fighters coming out, I can't wait to see what Takara comes up with next. Between Pulp Fiction, Speed, and The Lion King, 1994 was an incredible year at the box office. Unfortunately, you have to dig back a lot further for the winner of Best Movie to Game, which actually went to Super Return of the Jedi, the third and final chapter in the Super Star Wars saga. EGM loved the 3D scenes and all the stuff that reminded them in the movie. On the flip side, they weren't as happy to be reminded of Cliffhanger, the winner of Worst Movie to Game. The movie may have been action-packed, but the game is a real snooze fest. Most of the EGM editors forgot that Cliffhanger even came out, which I'm telling you is never a good sign. Not even a good marketing campaign could have helped that game, but it did go a long way to putting Sony's Equinox on the map, and it gives us tonight's winner for Best Ad. EGM was completely charmed by the whimsical theme and the fast-aging kid. It's the kind of ad that reminds us why we started gaming in the first place. And isn't that what good advertising is all about? We are all that kid. And that brings us to the technical awards, which is always my favorite part of the ceremony. Let's go ahead and start with the winner of Best Animation, which goes to Donkey Kong Country on the Super NES. EGM was completely transfixed by the graphics and animation, noting that the movements and characters are so fluid that they almost look like they're alive. And when it comes to Best Music, we've decided that the only fair thing to do is split up the categories into two separate awards, one for cartridges and one for CDs. Final Fantasy III takes home the prize for Best Music Cartridge, with a very special mention of the opera scene. The tunes in the vid are so good that you'll swear that there's a tiny symphony in your television. Over on the CD side, the winner for Best Music goes to Road Rash on the 3DO. This is the power of Soundgarden and Electronic Arts coming together to create the rockingest game you'll ever play. And now, before we take a moment to check in with our sponsors, I first wanted to give Sparkster a quick shout out for winning the Best Sound Effects category. Have you played Sparkster on the Super NES? It's great, and the sound effects will blow you away. Konami is a company known for high production value, and their newest mascot is getting the red carpet treatment. We'll be right back.
Next stop, Super Van City.
1, 2, 3, 4. You can get into town. Super Van City. Just fold it on down. Micro machines taking over the place with real racing dragsters ready to race. Working bridges and an airport too. A car wash serving you. Super Van City. Micro machines.
The Micro Machine, Super Van City. You put it together, fold it up, take it away. Vehicle collection sold separately.
So, is everybody using Duracell batteries?
You kidding? The second I heard they had a battery that outlasts all other brands, I bought the family a whole case.
Reminds me of the first time we tried Duracell batteries. We were living in Tulsa with your great Aunt Emma. We shared a one-room apartment.
Herb, did you slip her one of those other batteries?
Me?
The copper top. Tops them all.
Welcome back to Electronic Gaming Monthly's 7th annual Best and Worst Award Show. It's a good thing you're back, because we're about to give out a whole slew of genre prizes. Remember how last year decided to open up the awards to more genres? Well, this year they may have gone too far. Not only do we get action, shooting, driving, and sports, but there are also a few Japanese categories thrown in just for good measure. Let's kick it off with the Best Action Game Award, which goes to Super Metroid by Nintendo. This was one of those games that was heavily favored going into tonight, but so far it's only come out with one award. But don't let that keep you from discovering Super Metroid, because it's a winner. As is Dracula X, Rondo of Blood, the winner of Best Action Game from Japan. Sure, it was actually released in 1993, but again, we're not gonna tug at that thread. We're just gonna leave it well enough alone and say that Rondo of Blood is great. Now moving over to Best Shooter, the winner is R-Type 3, the Third Lightning, proving once again that this is a series that just keeps getting better. And the same can be said about Macross, Scrambled Valkyrie, the winner of Best Shooter from Japan. EGM loved that your little ship could absorb enemies and then turn them into allies, which is the kind of inventive thinking that you need more of in shoot-em-ups these days. Too bad it's not coming to the United States. Thankfully, American gamers were able to play this year's winner for Best Role-Playing Game, Final Fantasy III. No other RPG impressed EGM more than Final Fantasy III, and it's easy to see why. Squaresoft has set a new high watermark for graphics, music, and story, and I doubt it's going to be topped anytime soon. In fact, the game is so good that it picked up an award for Best Role-Playing Game from Japan, though this time it was under the name Final Fantasy VI. It sort of makes you wonder why they bothered with the two categories. Now, if you're looking to feel the need for speed, then look no further than Road Rash on the 3DO, the winner for Best Driving Game. This is everything the 3DO needed, with its intense action, fast-paced racing, and yes, Soundgarden. With games like this, the 3DO is definitely worth consideration, even despite having a sluggish start. If you're more of a basketball fan, then you'll be happy to know that NBA Jam on the Super NES takes the prize for Best Sports Game. It was a competitive year for sports, but you just can't top the 4-player dunks and hilarious cheat codes found in NBA Jam. I love that series, and it's almost as hard as the King of Fighters 94, the winner of Best Fighting Game. See how I did that? I don't think this category has ever been this popular, so you know a fighting game's good when it outshines everything else in 1994. This is the ultimate video game mashup, and it can only be topped by SNK and Capcom deciding to come together and create the biggest fighting game in the history of fighting games. But let's be honest, there's a better chance of Rob Reiner directing a sequel to Last Action Hero than Capcom teaming up with SNK. Alright folks, we're just moments away from crowning the Game of the Year. Before we get to that, I want to check in one more time with Cybermania 95. I know this thing's already gone long, but I just have to know. Cue to TBS.
Hey, you guys are babysitters. Hey, I need a babysitter.
Really? How old's the kid?
The kid is 92. George Jefferson. Bring a rope and a gag.
Marla, you know, Leslie forgot to tell the audience that today's show is being powered by THX Sound.
Well, the audience is definitely listening.
Hold up! Okay, the best interactive sports video on 10. Ready? Right, right. Award!
Well, where's our ball?
Where's our ball? Hello!
Wait.
The best interactive sports video is not here. Oh, they showed you.
Yeah, I bet that worked better in rehearsals. At least the audience sounds into it, right? Anyhow, it's finally time to start talking about the best of the best of the best. By now you know that we like to first start with the system-specific games of the year, followed then by the overall game of the year. What makes this year especially fun is that we've decided to expand the systems once again, adding the CDI, the 3DO, and the Jaguar. But before we get to the next generation systems, let's first talk about Donkey Kong, the winner of the Game Boy Game of the Year. This one took the EGM editors by complete surprise. They thought they were getting another port of the arcade classic, but no, Donkey Kong on the Game Boy is full of surprises. As far as I'm concerned, it should probably be on the short list for overall Game of the Year. I'm not sure I can say the same thing about Bobble, which wins the prize for Game Gear Game of the Year. This is a pretty straightforward arcade port, which is good if that's what you're after. I guess what I'm saying is that this was a pretty crummy year for the Game Gear. Now, we were accused last year of not respecting the CDI. It didn't even come up during the ceremonies, and we completely forgot to mention its best games. Well, we're not going to make that mistake this year because the ambitious interactive movie Burn Cycle is the big winner for the CDI Game of the Year. And speaking of cycles, Road Rash takes home the statue for 3DO Game of the Year. We've already seen Road Rash pick up 2 awards, so this win is a no-brainer. And then there's the Jaguar Game of the Year. Sure, it had a terrible launch, and maybe some of the games suck. There's no denying the brilliance of Tempest 2000. This is easily the most intense game of the year, and we've already done the math and found out that this is only available on Atari's 64-bitter. Over on the Neo Geo, the King of Fighters 94 comes out with another prize. With 190 megabits of action and more characters than you know what to do with, the King of Fighters easily takes the prize for Neo Geo Game of the Year. EGM notes that the editors were positively in love with Mai's new bouncy look. Yep, that's how you keep it classy in 1994. Speaking of classy, have you met Ground Zero Texas? It's the winner of the Sega CD Game of the Year, and it's a full motion shooter, the likes you've only seen a few times before on the Genesis add-on. Oh, and then there's Earthworm Jim, the best new character, and the Genesis Game of the Year. This was such a great year for Jim, and it's clear that the little action hero will definitely have a bright future ahead. I can't wait for part 2. I guess that means that it's finally time to talk about the Super NES Game of the Year, which just so happens to be Electronic Gaming Monthly's Game of the Year, Donkey Kong Country. No other game in EGM's history has ever taken Game of the Year with so many votes. This is a landslide, and for good reason. This game is future-proof. I'm sure kids of all ages will love it just as much as we do now in 10 or 20 years. And the silky, smooth graphics will never look dated. Folks, this is where gaming is headed, and it's this kind of innovation that's gonna lead us beyond the 32-bit era. I'm telling you, Donkey Kong Country is exactly the kind of game people are gonna be playing a decade from now. Mark my words. And I hate to say it, but that brings us to the end of another exciting award show. There are just no more statues to give out. But don't be sad, because even the biggest losers of the evening still have to admit that this was a pretty great year for gaming. We saw Final Fantasy III win the same award with 2 different titles. We saw Road Rash snag 3 trophies, and we celebrated the launch of the Jaguar a year late. But again, I'm not gonna pull at that thread because this whole ceremony is being held together by duct tape. You guys don't even know, the audience behind me? Completely fake. Hell, this is somebody from the future pretending to host a show that never existed. This whole thing is fake. There were never statues. The statues are a lie. 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 Wait, what? That's not how this was supposed to end. If you want to see what happens next, remember that we're running new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday between now and the end of the year. So, here's the question I have for you. What is your favorite game of 1994? More importantly, do you think EGM got it right here? Honestly, I don't. I was fine with Strider, Ghouls and Ghosts, Street Fighter II, and Samurai Showdown, but this is a terrible decision. Let me hear your thoughts in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back tomorrow with a review of the full season of The Council. along with a new episode of EGM's Best and Worst Awards on Thursday. Hopefully. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.